Hello and welcome to 24 Panels Per Second. This is the comic book film and TV podcast from the Comic Crush. It's been a while since we've done an episode, but we wanted to come back and talk about all the great things that have been kind of happening with the MCU and all the things that are coming with the MCU. Sorry I've been away for so long. I moved house and lots of other life stuff happening, so no podcasts. I'm really sorry, but I am kind of coming back for the end of this year, and I've brought Liz with me. Hello, Liz.
Hello.
It's actually been even longer since we've seen Liz, so I've done some podcasts in between, but we haven't done a podcast together. Feels like ages. Loki 2 we worked out was probably Loki season 2 was the last one, and I don't even know when that was, but it's been so long. Far too long.
I know, you missed me.
I think the audience probably did. I mean, not so much. No, of course I did. It is great to see you, Liz. I'm sure you've been keeping up with all the MCU stuff. I've been trying to keep up with all the MCU stuff. But what's more kind of daunting is what's coming down the kind of pipeline in the next year. So I'm just gonna give you a quick list. So starting right now, as you watch this, Deadpool and Wolverine would have hit Disney Plus, which of course was out, I think, in the summer at cinemas. I did go and see it. Liz went to see it too. We'll sort of touch on that. 22nd of December, What If Season 3 drops. I haven't watched any of the animated stuff, but I know my co-host here has. So we'll kind of drill Liz on that. 29th of January 2025, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is a new animated show, arrives. 14th of February 25, Captain America Brave New World arrives at cinemas. 4th of March, Daredevil Born Again, which I know is probably the one on this list that most people are excited about. I'm gonna kind of chance a guess at that. 2nd of May, Thunderbolts arrives. 24th of June, Ironheart drops on Disney Plus. 25th of July, Fantastic Four First Steps, which is a close second, I think, to Daredevil, if not probably the one that everyone is most excited about. 6th of August, you've got The Eyes of Wakanda, which is another animated show arriving on Disney Plus. There's a little break in September. And then in October, a sort of date TBC, Marvel Zombies, another animated series, arrives on Disney Plus. We get another break in November, but then they round the year off in December with Wonder Man, which looks so far to be a sort of one-shot show or very short series. Liz,
it's a whole lot of Marvel.
What's strange is they kind of took this time out almost for quality over quantity, as they said, but now we seem to have kind of jumping back into quantity but quite possibly quantity and quality, which is the magic kind of formula for anyone making this kind of stuff. I've got to say I'm actually genuinely excited for the next year. I haven't been keeping up as much as I used to, not just because of a lack of excitement, but I think just, as I said at the beginning, lots of life stuff happening and it just made it impossible to kind of really focus. There's loads of other films I missed. I missed Joker Folie à Deux. I don't know if you went to see that.
No, I haven't seen it. Really... You know, we could, yeah, I mean, we could talk about why or not.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll maybe save that for another episode, because that I think I'm hoping to watch it over, not necessarily right over Christmas, but at some point in December. And also Paul Taylor out, who's one of our patrons and our good friend from our days, has kind of been messaging me saying, "Have you seen this film yet? Have you seen this film?" I'm like, I haven't yet. And he was like, "You've got to go and see it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try and go and see it." And I haven't had the chance. Unfortunately, again, life stuff has kind of just been getting in the way.
Well, maybe we could talk about it.
Yeah, at some point I think we should try and see it and
Yeah.
talk about it.
Okay.
But we're here to talk about Marvel, not DC today. We've got to kind of catch up on the stuff that we missed. So we have briefly talked about the Marvels before. We're gonna skip over that, I think.
I think we're talking 2024. Let's talk, let's really go straight to Deadpool, because that was really the only thing, to come out up until, this past month or so with Agatha all along. 2024 was the year where they took a big step back, which I think was a really smart move. I think that it also really helped that Deadpool and Wolverine was the thing, that they had on the slate for the year.
Yeah.
Which, was the make or break thing.
I mean, it's interesting because they kind of brought Deadpool into the MCU. In fact, the whole plot revolves around bringing Deadpool into the MCU. And of course, bringing Hugh Jackman back was a big deal and quite surprising. I still feel a bit cheated that he came back. I especially for the whole picture, because I was kind of expecting him to maybe just be in it for like 15 minutes, but he's there for pretty much the whole thing. And I was kind of surprised that he came back, because he made a very big deal about knowing when to
pack it in.
Yeah, and for my money, Logan was probably the best comic book film I've ever seen in my life. I really enjoyed it, and I think part of that was because it fused itself with the Western genre, which I absolutely love, and also because it was such a strong ending, and
it was a beautiful cap off to his story.
Yeah. So I really didn't need this.
Wow.
I really did.
You say that, but I think me and most of the world would at this point disagree.
Yeah. So what's it done? Like $1 billion, $2 billion, something insane. Like the money's been insane, and it's probably one of the few kind of $1 billion movies of the last few years, because film is in a kind of weird space right now that I think film studios are still adjusting to. But yeah, how did you find like, I mean,
come on,
we can't really
yeah, we're not going to launch into a full review. We have a lot to talk about, but needless to say, for me, I mean, it was everything I wished for and then some. I laughed so much. Like that first, any trepidation one might have, walking in, that opening scene where they just absolutely desecrate the memory of Logan's beautiful ending. And there's like a 10-minute sequence where Deadpool is just like ripping apart his corpse and using it as a weapon, and it, set to in sync, like bye. I mean, I was just dying. I was just laughing and laughing and laughing, and that pretty much went on through the entire film. I haven't laughed that much in the cinema in probably since like the previous Deadpool movie came out.
I think here's the thing, and the fundamental difference between us is you will always have a better time at these things than I do.
Dying, Paul, absolutely dying. I was peeing my pants laughing.
I really enjoyed it. So I did have a fantastic time watching it. It was very entertaining. And I had a lot of fun watching it. I want to give a shout out to our buddy Keith Isles, who we haven't seen on the pod for a long time, but he's doing his own stuff and he's really busy at the moment. But and Keith also helped me move house. I think much to his regret.
Yeah, my condolences.
It was a big move, and he really went above and beyond, as did my pal Ed and his girlfriend and stuff. And a couple of family members really helped out as well. So thank you for that. It was a big move, a lot of comics, and yeah, Keith took me to see that. I mean, just before we did the move, he was like, okay, well, I've got a ticket to a sort of advanced screening of this. Do you want to come? And I was like, absolutely, of course I want to come. But I knew that I would not get the chance to podcast it. And he was going, do you want to podcast this? And I'm just like, I can't, because the house is just covered in boxes right now. We just didn't get to do it. I found it a really entertaining film, but ultimately a very, very empty film. And but there was no kind of emotional, it was all kind of very inorganic, artificial.
I
emotional
disagree
resonance.
wholeheartedly.
I think that
I thought, okay, all right, finish.
Go on. No, go on.
All right, well, okay.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
I mean, okay. I felt really touched by it. I walked out like feeling really, sort of moved, and like I just felt that it was this beautiful, sort of love letter to this leg of films that are sort of looked down on now, like the Fox franchise films, and I felt like it was actually it was actually giving those characters who are now kind of looked at, in this like, scornful way, forgotten, unloved, and like gave them this beautiful send off and made people fall in love with them again. And characters the Jennifer Garner Electra film, people just like look at that as garbage, and but then she got this amazing moment in this movie. So did so did so many of those actors. Channing Tatum, who never got to be Gambit, got to finally go and be Gambit. Like, it was
also that's kind of part of the thing with me is your and this was part of the problem with The Flash as well, which was you're being made to kind of care about films that never existed, and it's just like, why do we care if it's not a thing? Why care?
Because people do care. People, there are a lot of people out there who felt like really bummed that they never got that Gambit movie, and they got like their little moment in the sun. And what is wrong with that? It's like, and also that may open the door for there to actually be a Gambit movie. It's exactly, when you think about it, what happened with Deadpool. Deadpool wasn't going to exist. Deadpool only existed because like Ryan Reynolds wanted it so bad, that they filmed enough of the film to drop this 7-minute clip that people loved, and that's how the film came into existence. So
it's amazing how excited you are right now and angry.
I'm just telling you, this whole emotionally empty movie. I mean, like, come on.
I just couldn't attach to it in the same way that you could. I still enjoyed it, and I would absolutely watch it again. So it was a fun watch, but I don't think it really kind of hit me the same way. I mean, I certainly didn't get me in the feels the way, like, I don't know, the Dark Knight trilogy or Logan did, because that emotion felt earned and felt real.
And I feel this didn't.
Oh, I don't know. And again, I'm an old man now, and I am aware that I'm kind of phasing out of some of this stuff. So there is partly that. And also, I've never really loved Deadpool as a character. I've never really been able to.
Okay, and I do love Deadpool as a character, and I love the Deadpool movies, and I love Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, and I love the character from the comics for sure. That's
absolutely.
So it all appeals to me.
And, okay, so I don't know enough of the comics to be able to say that I love or hate it.
And I would say that all three films for me have actually been, probably as moving as, the Dark Knight trilogy. I felt like I think there were moments in the first two films, the love story between him and Vanessa, where I was like on the verge of tears, or in actual tears.
On the little icon that features Liz down here, I've got a little mini screen featuring Liz, and there's always a little bar across it that says remove. I'm just going to hit that now. And, no, I'm kidding. I don't know. Okay, like, each their own, I guess.
Okay, all right. Well, I loved it, and I think a lot of people loved it.
No, absolutely. I'm not denying any of that.
Right.
Because
And
those
I
things
think,
are
regardless, of our
yeah,
personal feelings, it was a huge success.
absolutely.
And it was, it basically, reinvigorated a lot of people's excitement and love for the MCU.
Yeah, or at least I think what they might be excited for now, as you pointed out, is this idea that you're going to get a lot of these characters coming back, not necessarily in this same form, because I don't think we'll really see Jennifer Garner back. Maybe we'll see Wesley Snipes.
Wow, that's something we can talk about. That is something we can talk about.
But there's one film that's not on the slate for 2025 anymore. But
maybe that's the reason.
Yeah. It could be, but I still think, again, he's too. I mean, actually, I think talking about Blade, I felt that, and respectfully to the guy as an actor, fucking brilliant actor, but I felt that I'm going to say his name wrong because I'm terrible at pronouncing names, as we know. Mahershala Ali was too old to play that character when he started. I mean, he was in his 50s or approaching his 50s as they were sort of signing him on. And then as time ticked on, I think even his manager lost their shit in public. Not lost their shit, but they did kind of go, like, what's happening with this film, man? Like, what is going on? Where's the, why hasn't it happened yet?
Well, I mean, I've heard rumors that Mahershala Ali himself had a lot of issues with, different scripts and, directorial decisions and, so, but I don't know what the truth, actually is. But it has been plagued by a lot of problems. And so that is one film that has been taken off of next year's slate. And who knows? I mean, Ryan Reynolds, since we're talking about Deadpool, we're talking about that Blade. And that was a wonderful surprise in the Deadpool movie when he showed up.
I absolutely didn't see that. But I mean, I didn't see Gambit or Elektra. Like
I didn't see Chris Evans. Like that was hilarious.
I think I kind of knew Chris Evans was going to be there. But of course, not expecting him to be playing Johnny Storm. I knew Daphne Keane was going to be in there, but I was not expecting, Jennifer Garner. I wasn't expecting Wesley Snipes. I wasn't expecting
Channing Tatum. Yeah.
So those were all fun to see.
Yeah.
Again, though, coming off, the Elektra movie isn't a great movie, really. It's not a great movie.
It's not. The Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner it's watchable. It's not.
Yeah, really... and the director's cut is the better film, despite the fact that I think they got rid of at least one Evanescence song, which was disappointing. It's disappointing to lose one Evanescence song, especially since it was the better of the two songs. But I think it's in a way it reminds me of, there's something else that we're going to talk about later, not in this episode, but hopefully in a later episode. Star Wars, which I think it's become like that in which they're, as you said, trying to reclaim the less loved parts of its universe,
right? Which they've successfully done with Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think they have successfully done with Star Wars. Hopefully, like I said, we're hoping to do an episode on the kind of future of Star Wars. So, and that's something we'll get into there. I don't want to talk too much about that now, but I feel it's a similar kind of thing, and you feel like there's almost been some sort of edict from up on high. Go ahead and sort this shit out.
Well, I mean, I think that like there's totally something to be said for that. Like now that that like the MCU has become this multiverse that can encompass whatever they want it to, and that they have the rights to, which is most everything. They can kind of pick and choose. They can cherry pick, and that's great. They can lift up characters from an old film like Elektra, and give her a great moment in one of the contemporary films that are taken, I think a little more seriously now because of the success of the MCU. They could give Channing Tatum a Gambit movie, cool.
You're desperate for Channing Tatum.
It was funny. It was, his accent was just,
the accent
I was just dying. And Wesley Snipes, I mean, I think what Ryan Reynolds is kind of petitioning for is for him to get like a Logan style send off, which
to be fair, I think
really cool.
I think Blade Trinity was supposed to be, but slightly undone by Snipes himself, from what I hear.
Right, and hilariously, Ryan Reynolds is in Blade Trinity. And
yes, of course.
And Wesley Snipes didn't like him at all. He thought it was they didn't actually, particularly get along, at least on Wesley Snipes' end, which I thought was very funny.
I don't think Wesley Snipes got along with anyone on that movie, though. From what I hear, it's it was a very contested period, shall we say? But overall, I kind of enjoyed it, but it didn't really. I'll watch it again, and I might well change my mind. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've watched lately in other universes, as we've discussed, where I've kind of gone, okay, and some of that is to do with time and your own outlook. Although I don't think there's been enough of a gap between those between the dropping the original release of Deadpool 3 and now for me to really kind of.
Sure. I mean,
for a change of heart, there isn't going to be a mass kind of turnover of emotion for me there. But I'll certainly give it another go when it arrives on Disney Plus. Do we want to move on? Is there anything else you wanted to say about Deadpool, or would you like to move on to?
Well, I think we can move on. It may come up again just organically because we're talking about all this other stuff coming up. But I really thought that they outdid themselves. Everyone had gone in maybe a little bit worried that they were gonna sort of take some of the bite out of it, like that. Disney putting out a Deadpool movie was gonna not live up to the full R-rated, sort of ultra violent, ultra everything that the previous Deadpools have been. And I really think that they went ahead and, gave it, everything that everyone wanted. They didn't hold back.
I think it's interesting because Disney does put out, especially using Disney Plus and Star and Hulu and things like that, there is actually some quite dark material on offer. And I've been surprised at how dark a lot of it is. But for the moment, that's all stuff they're putting out kind of under other sub banners like FX and Hulu and as we know, I think like this year and next year and 2026, those banners are going to start to disappear, and we're going to it's just going to be Disney Plus and Star and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of gradual change in the material. I don't know if there will be, but we'll wait and see, I'm sure. One thing I have really enjoyed on Disney Plus, and I think you've probably enjoyed as well, I'm going to take a guess, is Agatha All Along, which we both just kind of finished watching. Now, did you binge the whole thing in one go?
Not in one go, but I did watch big chunks of it, in like probably the course of like 2 weeks.
So I watched the first 4 that were up because we discussed doing this pod, and it's like, oh yeah, actually I better start watching the show, which I think I was excited for a year ago, and then they were like, I mean, I don't know, it took a long time to come, this show. It feels like it's been a long time since WandaVision, which was really, did that predate the pandemic?
It was like
WandaVision?
it was sort of early pandemic, I
Yeah,
think. Like I think it did come out in like maybe January of 2020.
yeah, and I think things like that, pandemic and the strikes, have cost a lot of momentum. And people have started to look around and realize, oh, there's other things I can be doing. um, and but I was pleasantly surprised by this. I mean, I didn't know what to expect really,
Yeah.
and
I
what I
don't know that
felt,
anyone did.
no, and in
Because
fact, it
Agatha,
was sorry,
Agatha Harkness is not like,
no,
some big bill Marvel character. She's a very sort of, you know,
mm,
under the radar Marvel character. She's never had her own series. She's always been a supporting character to the Fantastic Four, to the Scarlet Witch,
mm.
and it's a weird proposition to give this character a series at all.
But I think a lot of that was to do with Catherine Hahn's
Performance, yeah. I
yeah,
think every
performance, her kind of personality, and how she kind of won the social media kind of chunk of that audience. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
I
think it
think
had
that
everything
does
to do with
count.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think without her in that role, I don't think that this series would have ever existed.
Mm.
Um,
And it was a like at first I thought they were going to go the same route as WandaVision, because you start in this other genre, this
well,
kind
you
of
start in Mayor of Easttown.
yeah, that's
You know,
exactly what it is, and it was just like, oh, maybe they're going to go this route, and every episode is going to be a different genre. It wasn't, luckily.
fortunately, yeah, and
Yeah,
but it
because
shows you basically that whatever was going on with WandaVision, how several years ago, she's still been just chugging along, living in this uh, not sitcom, but TV sort of
yeah,
world of her own, because she's just the only one who's still under that spell.
of course, and but the thing was, it had been because it had been so long since WandaVision, I couldn't remember how they had parted in WandaVision. Like I just couldn't remember, and I felt it could have done with a bit of a recap at the beginning to go, this is
Right.
where we're at. But I wonder if that would have clued the audience in too much into what was going on. And I very much felt about the show in watching it. It was kind of like Marvel's sex show. It was just like, okay, well, we've been, because the Marvel films are actually quite sexless. They're very there might be a little bit of romance, but there's no sex, there's no danger, there's no frisson. And that's obviously a conscious choice because they're aiming at a younger audience, really. Even though it's not a younger audience necessarily that goes to see them, it's people sort of like my age and whatever age you may be, Liz, which we're not going to discuss on the podcast. But there's, I think they're kind of sexless. But this wasn't. Like, this was very kind of, it's like you get Catherine Hahn, who has her own kind of very unique kind of sexuality. Aubrey Plaza, who has a very kind of unique kind of energy going on. There's, it was probably one of the kind of, and I mean this in a complimentary sense, the gayest shows that Marvel have ever done. The gayest thing they've ever done.
Yes.
And it was all the better for that. And in fact, as you go through and look at those witches, they're all witches of kind of, they're all fictional gay icons in a way. Like obviously the Wizard of Oz, the Craft, all the things they kind of touch on are all kind of things that have very much been embraced and adopted by predominantly gay audiences. And it was all the better for that. However, for me, it felt, and I really enjoyed it, it felt completely divorced from the MCU. Completely divorced from it.
Which, maybe that's to its benefit as
Yeah,
a show
totally.
that stands on its own. Because I think the problem with some of the MCU series, and like it's not really a problem that I have, but I think it's a problem that other viewers, have expressed, that basically a lot of the MCU series have felt like rather than episodic TV series, one long MCU movie cut into chunks.
Yeah.
Um,
but did you feel like I actually felt it would have been almost that was my one complaint is I felt it would have been better as a single movie. That was my one kind. It's like actually I'm not in the mood to watch this every week. I want to see like an MCU, and I felt it would have actually been the braver choice to make that the movie, because invariably the movie will reach a massive audience.
Sure, but I feel that I mean, as a TV show, I think this is actually maybe their strongest entry in so far as the form of a TV show.
Okay.
Rather than, an MCU series that people could apply that critique to, that it kind of feels like they're trying to tell a really long Marvel movie, episodically, and to varying degrees of success. Whereas this really felt like, I think to its benefit, as you said, it feels kind of divorced from the MCU, but it feels like a TV show that, almost anyone could walk into and, enjoy as a TV series. And, with the exception, I think, of the introduction of Joe Locke, as the character who we'll talk about, he turns out to be, I think that it could be watched by anyone who had never seen an MCU movie and really didn't need to know anything about the implications of the wider MCU to enjoy it.
I would say, yeah, I kind of agree with that. And there were surprises in the show. I mean, as you say, Joe Locke's character being gradually kind of revealed. Don't they name check Mephisto in this as well?
I think they do.
Because I was expecting, oh my god, is he going to be revealed as? But actually, of course, no. It's obvious he should have been. That he would have been that character because he was the child of Wanda. And is that canon to the comics? See, I've not read any of the Young Avengers.
Okay, so it canon to the comics. I mean, okay, I'll try and nutshell it, but
yeah, please.
Basically, the birth of the twins, Billy and Tommy, can actually sort of be credited to Agatha Harkness, because in the 1985 Vision and Scarlet Witch series, Agatha sort of ends up coming to the aid of Wanda and Vision, and they during this, because Agatha has like sort of this history with Wanda. Sometimes they're sort of enemies, but really usually they're kind of allies. Agatha's sort of a mentor to her. Agatha is the one who essentially like shows Wanda that she can use magic to conceive children with the Vision. But in doing so, she has to use these. It's a little convoluted. It's been a long time since I read it, but essentially she has to use like the life force or like these souls that belong to Mephisto essentially to do it. And then eventually Mephisto comes and takes it back and basically wipes the twins from existence, and Agatha removes Wanda's memory of them. So that basically to spare her the pain of their disappearing. And then many years later in Avengers Disassembled, when the Scarlet Witch sort of unlocks those memories, she flips out and kills Agatha Harkness, and then a whole lot of other people. Sort of, and that's yeah.
Because the whole chunk of the MCU, not the MCU, sorry, the Marvel comics that I've not read, but like it one, okay, we've got to obviously thank Liz for that, because this is why one of the reasons Liz is on the podcast, because I would not have been able to dive into any of that. So thank you, Liz. But two, like, I mean, it's a weird thing, and they keep teasing Young Avengers, but it keeps not happening, and then it's such a bizarre.
I mean, I think they're taking their time. I think that's fine. I think it would be silly if they did just try and dive into it. I think it would. I love that they're just slowly introducing these characters, giving you a chance to like get to know them and like them before they're like, sort of shoving them onto a team together. I think it's like much more organic this way. There's no reason to rush it. I think it's a really good decision. I mean, because, when you think back on something, and, this is my personal feelings, but when you think back on something like Batman versus Superman, but actually it's a Justice League movie where they're just shoving all these new characters into your face and saying, look, they're a team. Woohoo. Like, you don't care because you don't know them yet. Whereas this, it's like when they eventually form a team, I think it'll be really cool. And people will be like, oh, I love this character and I love that character, and they love them all separately, on their own merits, like, from other things they've seen. So, I think they're doing it the smart way.
They're actually kind of taking more time about this than they did the original Avengers.
Yeah, but again, it's like, well, where's the rush?
I hope there's a very funny line. Have you been watching the new series of Heartstopper?
Yeah. Heartstopper is great. And like Joe Locke, I was so pleased when they cast him, and obviously I think me and everyone else suspected who he was going to turn out to be, and we're correct. But I think that's a great bit of casting.
In the new season of Heartstopper, there's a moment where Nick asks, oh God, I can't remember the character's name. Charlie. Plays Charlie. Yeah. He asks him, do you want to watch something, like watch a film later? And Charlie goes, yeah, as long as it's not Marvel. Which I thought was nice. And I'd love to know if that was something that Alice Oseman put in there once.
Honestly, I think that predated him being part of a Marvel franchise, but I could be wrong.
But I thought that was retrospectively a nice touch. But I like overall, I really enjoyed the show. It just, for me, it never kind of really settled down. And I think I would like to, at some point, sit and watch it again now that you know what the end is. Because I almost didn't... The actual big twist almost kind of passed me by.
Okay.
And not the twist about his identity, because I didn't feel that was the big twist. The other twist kind of almost passed me by, and it was just... I had to kind of stop and go off and do something, and then a bit later on in the evening, I came back and wound it back and sort of kind of went, oh yeah.
I mean, is this a full spoilers review? I think it should be, right?
I guess we could now, but so it gets revealed.
I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't. I guess because we're talking about a bunch of stuff. Well, okay, if you haven't seen the end of Agatha All Along, like maybe just switch us on.
I'll give you a thumbs up. I'll give you a thumbs up when you can come back on. So it gets revealed that, of course, the Witch's Road, all of that is a construct of
Billy
Maxwell. It's a construct of both. Well, actually, both of them, because the original lie starts with Agatha Harkness, but then Billy makes it real. Showing that he has powers not entirely dissimilar to Wanda's. And there are hints all throughout that you're just like your mother and and all this. But I felt a little... I mean, I didn't really need... I would have preferred Agatha just came back rather than came back as a sort of false ghost, like that kind of...
Sorry, Sorry, I had to plug the battery back in on my computer.
Liz was just reaching for a broomstick.
Out of here.
Yeah, I would have liked to see her come back, but I just didn't really need her coming back as some sort of weird like that.
Well, okay,
threw
but
me a
that's
little bit.
okay. All right, fair enough. But there is comics context for it.
Right.
So there's like big because she gets killed, and then she hangs around as a ghost for ages in the comics. So it's not coming out of nowhere. It works for me. And when she does come back as a ghost, she actually looks a lot more like her comics counterpart with the gray hair and the outfit. Like that's kind of the traditional Agatha Harkness look.
And also, I mean, I like the reveal was Rio was death, and of course, I involuntarily almost started thinking about Thanos.
Well, yeah, and Deadpool. Because Death in the comics is really kind of the paramour of or at least the like object of desire for both Thanos and Deadpool.
Right, and then did start to wonder. Oh, I wonder what it would have been like to go through the Infinity stuff again, almost, but with this in this context. But who knows? There you go, folks. You can come back. I ultimately did like it though. Like I enjoyed it, but I would like to see it again. It was an odd entry for me into the kind of canon of MCU stuff. And beyond Billy Maximoff and it being an origin for him, I don't see how they work it, how it then attaches itself to the rest of the MCU in any kind of meaningful way.
I don't know that it needs to. And I kind of think that's maybe, the point, that it can just exist as its own standalone series. Something, big does happen. It does become a vehicle to introduce Billy Maximoff. But I think it's a really enjoyable entry on its own. It's a showcase for a bunch of really talented actors. I think it does a fantastic job of, introducing these characters to you who are in fact Marvel characters. They're just kind of like lower tier Marvel characters that a lot of people wouldn't know. And giving these great actresses like showcase to
completely, like the whole cast was great. I mean, Alice
really fantastic. I mean, and like I think as far as like new characters that people don't really know, I think you don't have to know that they're comics characters. I think they're all just really unique and likable characters. And there was no pressure on them to be anything else, because they're such sort of unknown characters to the wider audience. I think the actresses could kind of really put their own impressions on them.
I really liked Ali Arn as Alice Wu Gulliver. I think it's Ali Arn that plays her. And funny enough, Mike Perkins has been on his socials talking about he's actually credited in the show because I think he kind of co-created Alice Wu Gulliver for one of the runs.
She's the most modern of the of the coven of witches. She's the most recent introduction, in terms of, I think she was in, she was introduced in like 2016 or something like that. Whereas like Lilia and Jennifer were introduced in like the early 70s. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize Mike Perkins was I
think he is. Yeah, I think he's the co-creator of Alice Wu, and I loved all those actors because it was entirely apart from Billy Maximoff. It was an entirely female-led show.
I mean, the best episode of the series, and I would argue maybe
I know what you're going to say.
Probably the best episode of like any of the MCU series, just as a standalone episode, was the Lilia episode, which fantastic. Was amazing. And like Patti LuPone, she's like this legendary Broadway actress, and so when her name was attached to it, I was like, oh wow, I can't believe they got her to do an MCU thing, and for a while, I mean, she was great. She was great in it, but I was like, you can't just like have Patti LuPone in your show and not give her something really huge to do. And they did. And, I thought that episode was just incredible.
and making sense of all that stuff that had gone before, and those moments where she's kind of just screaming, and and I thought that was terrific. And again, I think the show will probably hold up even better on a repeat watch. I sometimes find it difficult looking at a lot of the shows. Like I've started to rewatch Daredevil recently because of Born Again, but I'm not really I'm not really connecting with it again. But that might be me, that might be
Probably is.
But I sometimes find 2 minutes left. I sometimes find it difficult to reconnect with the TV shows more than the movies. Like I sat and watched Civil War again yesterday. So
it's terrific.
Yeah, absolutely terrific. And again, a movie that I didn't like the first time around. So there you go. But yeah, overall good show. I really enjoyed it. I'll look forward to at some point maybe trying to watch it again. Maybe as part of like a phase. I don't even know what phase that was. Phase 4.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be interested because the way they left things, it seems like Agatha isn't quite gone. Billy's story is kind of just getting started. That Tommy is out there somewhere.
Where are we going to see him?
Right, exactly. Like they've yet to introduce him. I feel like Jack Schaefer, who directed WandaVision and Agatha, should be given like that set of characters to just, okay. I feel like they're, if they're going to do, and I don't know who's directing the Vision Quest series, but I feel like anything to do with the Maximoffs, they should just have Jack Schaefer in charge of it. Because she's done great. Like just a really amazing job, and and it keeps it really fresh and surprising and interesting, in a way that some of the other MCU shows don't have the as much of those qualities.
Yeah, very true, very true. I think that there's always more interesting stuff to be had sometimes than necessarily what's there now. But what's there now is interesting. When you look at the kind of misstep of the MCU, if we want to call it that, it's interesting that coincided with a very tumultuous period in everybody's lives.
Right.
So I think some of that needs to be looked back on in that context.
But now we're looking ahead, and
I just will say a lot of the things that people didn't like about the MCU in the last few years, I've absolutely loved.
Right.
Like Doctor Strange and Black Widow and things like that. I thought were great. And that's what I was trying to get at before you rudely cut me off there. But
because
yeah, Lizzie's actually trying to get us through the episode a bit faster.
But also, I feel like it's kind of interesting looking at the slate for 2025. Are they making a mistake? Do you think that they, because it felt like, there was this Marvel fatigue because they were just pumping so much content at you. And so then 2024, they kind of wisely took a step back, but then it feels like 2025 is back to like, a really, really full slate. I
think what's more interesting about this slate is it isn't just confined to movie, then TV show, and then nothing for a long time. They've kind of filled it with animation. They filled it with long form TV, short form TV. There's a touch of greatest hits in there because you've got the new Captain America, but I think they've cast very, very safely because they've gone with really established older actors like Harrison. I mean, Harrison Ford is a big get for Marvel. That's a big freaking thing. And also, he's well aware of his own star power and his own career and legacy as such. And I think he's well aware that, oh yeah, I've done like this big series of films and this big series of films, and now I'm going to do this big series of films because I'm Harrison fucking Ford and I can do anything. And like that, and remember, Harrison Ford's a man whose career survived being in one of the Expendables movies, and those movies are freaking terrible. Like, they're awful. And I was actually horrified that he did that. But you know, I think he's having the freaking time of his life right now, Harrison Ford. And you know, it's so refreshing to see someone that age getting out there and kind of still doing like huge movies. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting seeing that stuff come through. But I think they've cast, even with people like Giancarlo Esposito. Sorry, we're talking about Captain America: Brave New World. That's just where we've gone.
Right.
That's kind of, I think that's the first.
Well, it's the first like film
big movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Which comes out Valentine's Day, Liz. So you know.
Yeah, I'm you know, gonna take myself on a date.
My missus too.
Oh well, yeah, I'm sure she'll love that.
She won't. We never do anything for Valentine's Day. We're not that kind of couple. But there's like Giancarlo Esposito, but then they've also cast some really kind of interesting and, as it turns out, quite controversial actors. Like Shira Haas is going to be in this. I think she's going to be playing the character, I want to say Sabra, I think the character's name is. And Shira Haas is a fascinating actor to watch. I don't know if you've seen any of her things. She was in the show that I've forgotten what it's called now. But it was a great show about a Jewish couple that get married, but the wife finds the relationship very restrictive and eventually runs away from her husband. I mean, obviously that is just me skirting over what the show's really kind of about, because I don't want to speak too much to it because I just can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen it, but it was a really good show. And more kind of interesting to this, she was in Bodies.
Okay.
On Netflix. And she was terrific in that. But really an interesting actor. I think she's been a controversial casting choice because of everything that's going on in Israel and Gaza at the moment. Again, I don't want to speak too much to that because I'm not well informed enough to you know, kind of discuss that. So I'm not glossing over it. I just don't feel well informed enough to kind of go into it. But she's been a controversial cast choice. But at least they're making interesting choices in the casting. Do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of liked the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, apart from a couple of the episodes.
Oh, I love it so much.
But I will kind of rewatch it before we kind of see the movie. And I think this is going to be good. I was looking at the trailer again, and I think it's going to be good. Should we put the trailer up, Liz? We can
Let's do it. Let's
put it up, because it is a good trailer. It is a kind of interesting thing to watch. Here we go.
Wilson. Thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you for the invite, sir. I have to admit, I'm still getting used to the new look.
They said lose the mustache or lose the election. You and I haven't always agreed in the past, but I want to make another run at making Captain America an official military position.
And if we disagree on how to manage this situation, then what happens?
Work with me, Sam. We'll show the world a better way forward.
Sir, your inner circle's been compromised. Either you can't see that, or you don't want to. What if it's a trap? Global power is shifting. You're just a pawn.
You may be Captain America, but you're not Steve Rogers.
You're right. I'm not.
Oh yeah,
It looks good. It looks good.
it looks really good.
So, I mean, the vibe I get from that is much more Winter Soldier than,
Very much so. Yeah.
you know, any other movies. The Red Hulk thing.
Red Hulk, like-
everyone kind of assumes this is going to be Harrison Ford, right? So,
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going with the comics, like, then yeah.
I've not read any of the Red Hulk stuff, but you is that something you've read and you've enjoyed?
It's great. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I read a bunch of it when it was coming out, which was a long time ago at this point, but it's really, it's really great. And it's really fun. And like, I mean, yeah, I just spoiled it for anyone who hasn't read it, but it's part of it is like, who is the Red Hulk, you know, which they drag out for quite a while. And, you know, as it turns out to be Thunderbolt Ross.
It's funny because what did I read recently? That it was like a tweet or something that said, in the comics is such a great phrase. Oh, in the comics, this happened, because no one is ever going to check. Any of the people you're talking to and saying that to, no one's going to check.
They will never question.
Say whatever you want.
Well, except for the guy who has read it and is like, well, actually, I think it's fine.
Well, actually, yeah. There's I think Marvel are due to release, if they haven't already, who is the Red Hulk as a Marvel modern epic collection, which I'm loving those. I've only managed to pick up one or
those
two
are
so far.
fantastic. Like, I think they're so great. It's just like all the storylines that, you know, have been sort of out of print and hard to get. They've actually sort of taken on board what people want, and they're putting them in these beautiful modern epic collections, which are pricey. They're like $45 thereabouts, but they're worth it. You get a lot of story in them, and it's stuff that, you know, is really kind of the cream of the crop in terms of storylines.
I think I've got a review of the Black Widow one that was released earlier this year,
Right,
on the Comic Crush, which was a terrific one. And long out of print stuff. Young Avengers is coming soon. Maybe we're going to get an announcement about Young Avengers. I tend to think we will.
I think we will.
They're actually getting very coordinated with the comics and the
like
MCU stuff. So,
right. Well, I think they're finally taking people's complaints on board.
Yeah.
Because, you know, for a while they were terrible about it. You know, when Winter Soldier came out, Winter Soldier, the storyline wasn't in print. You know, it's silly. So,
but again, that also is due for reissue. I think
that actually has come out. That actually has come out in a modern epic, recently.
Oh, but I mean not the Captain America sort of the stuff that leads to Death of Captain America, but the later stuff that Remender did, the Bitter March, and
right,
so that is coming soon.
Oh, okay, cool.
As well,
Yeah,
yes, I think I read in one of the trade things. So I'm really looking forward to that. We got to talk about the other big movie. Do you want to jump to the other big movie for
Thunderbolts?
For next year? It'll be the Thunderbolts. I'm actually kind of more excited for this movie because I think it looks like it'll be.
I'm really excited. I like of the films coming out next year. It's like that's kind of the one I'm most excited for. I don't know like why exactly. Well, no, I do know why. but
it looks like
it
fun.
looks so cool. Yeah, and it's just all like, I love the idea of the Thunderbolts, as this group of, sort of anti-heroes who kind of like, have to sort of become heroic, even though they all kind of, have these devious qualities, and they're all killers, and yeah, I mean, it's and like all the trailers have looked fantastic. Are we playing a trailer? Is that happening?
We can play a trailer. We can have a look at
Let's
that.
play a trailer.
That is a ton of fun. And I think we've certainly got stuff to talk about with that trailer. So here's the teaser.
I click leave on porch. Your subordinates will be reported to DoorDash HQ.
Alexi, it's me. Open up.
Milena? Hold on! Elena!
Hi, Dad.
Sorry about the wait. It was on an important call. Highly classified. Lot of work. Many irons in fire.
You feel fulfilled?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so full. So filled. But why do you ask this? What brings you here?
There is something wrong with me. An emptiness. I'm just drifting. And I don't have purpose. I thought throwing myself into work was the answer.
When your feet are in the air, your head on the ground. Try to stay and spin. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Who are you?
I'm Bob.
Who sent you, Bob?
Nobody. You were all sent?
Everyone here has done bad things. Shadow ops. Robbing government labs. Contract kills.
Yeah, so?
So, someone wants us gone. What the hell?
We're brought up with this belief that there are good guys and there are bad guys.
What's the plan?
This could get messy.
But eventually, you come to realize that there are bad guys and there are worse guys and nothing else. Look at you. So adorable.
Don't worry, she's bulletproof. What happened to bulletproof? It's bulletproof-ish. Is that Bucky?
That's not good.
That was great. I mean,
Oh, it's so good.
that looks fantastic. I think that is again, it's the one I'm the most kind of interested in seeing. Just because it looks like the most fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of something that's been missing a bit from the MCU stuff of late. There's not as much zip and not as much fun as there could have been. Yeah, I don't, no notes. I've got nothing to add to that. Well, I mean, it's not. Those aren't like the Thunderbolts team that as they originally appeared.
Well, it's
right?
not the traditional, yeah, and that's very
Yeah.
interesting. I think we've talked about this on the pod before.
Mm.
I'll be like basically furious if they don't like have Zemo in the movie, because they have to have Zemo in the movie. Like,
Yeah, I'll be gutted if he's not there.
yeah, because like, I mean, if you're talking about the original like Thunderbolts team, like the sort of great reveal in that first issue was that the leader of the team was Zemo. And you have to read it to get the full context of that, but it's he's really integral to that team, and they've already set up this dynamic between him and Bucky that's very interesting. Now, Bucky has been a member of the Thunderbolts. Ghost has been a member of the Thunderbolts, although it was like it's a different iteration. In the
Bucky was
comic
quite
show.
recent. Like there was the recent Thunderbolts.
Well, I mean, yeah. So,
series
but
as
he
well.
was in a previous team as well.
Mm.
Yeah, and there was actually the very recent Thunderbolt series, which I think did include Elena and maybe more of them.
The one I read most recently.
It also included Sharon Carter, which is interesting because that's another character who could theoretically pop up in this.
I think World Strike is the one I read recently, which had a venomized
Black
Natasha
Widow.
Romanoff, yeah, and Countess. What's her face?
Yeah,
Vanessa,
Contessa. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's the one where I know the least about the comics history beyond that big reveal, which is not something they're going to be able to do in this.
Right, which is maybe why they haven't announced that he's in it. I'm really hoping they're still planning on some big surprise with the Zemo, but
I'm really shocked they revealed Bob.
Well, I mean, they've only introduced him as Bob in the trailers, but everybody knows, okay, that's the Sentry.
It's the second time in the last couple of years he's played a character called Bob, because he's from Top Gun Maverick.
Okay, I haven't seen, which I still haven't seen.
Yeah, they make a lot of entertainment over the fact that his call sign, but they've all got these cool signs, and his call sign is Bob because it's literally his name. Right. But he's a terrific actor, that guy, Lewis Pullman, I think he is. But he's a terrific kind of like presence to bring into
right, and he also wasn't the original casting choice.
No. So can you refresh my memory as to who had to leave the movie? Was it Stephen Yang?
Yes, yeah. He left by choice, I think, or scheduling conflicts or something. It wasn't, it wasn't that he was fired or anything like that.
And it's strange because he would have been a lot more like the later iteration of the Sentry than this one, because there is a sort of Asian American
iteration of the Sentry. Is there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, later on, the Sentry becomes
really
an Asian American.
Okay,
yeah,
I haven't read the most recent series of the Sentry, but the character that I'm familiar with, like Bob Reynolds, is like a blonde dude who more resembles the current actor.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But I was happy, with the original casting choice. I'm happy with this casting choice. I'm just stoked to see the Sentry. I just think that's like, whoa, okay. That'll be really interesting. I really want to see what they do with the Sentry.
And also, it's interesting they're bringing a Superman-esque character in the year that DC is releasing, a new Superman film.
And I would argue that like the Sentry is nothing like Superman. He's not even really a Superman analog.
Right.
I mean, he is like sort of the ultra, he has the, sort of ultra, powerful invulnerability of Superman, but like he's this really, sort of mentally distraught character. There's no like Clark Kent wholesomeness to him. He's really just very, very troubled.
I wonder if, because they can't do what in the, for the Sentry, what they did in the comics, which was a really big
no,
and would have would have been no in terms of how they, the backstory of the Century.
Oh yeah, which was so
terms of-
cool.
Yeah, and I was really, in this day and age, it would be impossible to do that in comics. It
Right.
would be. I think the only thing I can think of that even remotely goes near it in terms of comics is the Walking Dead. Oh, actually, no, this is the final issue, which was a complete rug pull for I think 99% of the comics.
I mean, like for
Reading.
context, for people who have no idea what we're talking about, what are we talking about, Paul?
So, back in was it the late 90s, the Century?
Or early 2000s.
Early 2000s. There was an article, I think it was in Wizard Review, and tell me if I've got this wrong because I'm going by memory. I haven't sort of reread on it. But there was an article in Wizard revealing this character that Stan Lee had written decades before, but had been scrapped and had never got to make it into comics. And Stan was like, well, we're bringing this character back, and such is going to write him, and such is going to draw him. And they made such a fucking big deal out of this. And the comic came out, massive hit. And then they revealed that, in fact, the character had never existed. Like, this was his first real iteration.
Okay, I didn't know about the Wizard article and all that, but I did know that it was like. I did know that fans were sort of like hoodwinked into thinking this was like the reintroduction of this like forgotten old character.
You would not be able to do now. Because there's far too many armchairs.
Well, there's like Wikipedia and everything else. Nobody, you couldn't really pull the wool over everyone's eyes the same way with the the resources that we now have.
And of course you won't. There's no. I don't know if there's a filmic equivalent to doing that. But like the reveal of who the Thunderbolts are themselves. You can't really do it.
And like Paul, like, okay, so do you? I'm just going to go ahead and say I've got nothing. But like, what's with the asterisk? Like, do you have any theories?
I do have. I have one theory. It's not a great theory.
Okay, because this was like a late edition. It was just called Thunderbolts, and then later on they added this asterisk. And now, like, what do you make of it? What do you make of it?
I have one boring theory.
Okay.
I have a couple of theories.
All right.
So I think one theory could be, or actually really just one theory. Like, I think that Countessa is going to suggest that as a team name. And everyone else or someone else is going to go, no, we'll workshop it. So it's always going to be like this thing of we're changing that name at some stage. We're gonna alter that name. That's not going to be the team name.
Okay.
Or we're not going to be a team. This is just a temporary situation we've all kind of been thrown into, and therefore we're not calling it anything. I think it's going to be something like that. I'll happy to be proved wrong. I'm usually wrong.
Okay, no, that's interesting. Like, that's like my mind hadn't gone there.
Or I guess it could be that someone tries to suggest that they are like the new Avengers.
Well, like, okay, because basically that team you could either have called Thunderbolts or you could have called the Dark Avengers.
Yeah.
Because essentially they're kind of a very similar thing. So that's would be, like sort of a, if they just flipped it to Dark Avengers, it would work just as well as.
Do you know what the makeup of the New Avengers was?
The original, the like Bendis New Avengers team.
Was it the same team it had always been, but they just got New Avengers?
No. It was its own team. Like, so, oh gosh, it was Captain America, Spider-Woman. It was, I think, like, Hawkeye gets killed before then. I mean, who else? I'm
just going to look it up now.
Team originally, it was like, yeah, look it up because
Ronin, Doctor Strange. Okay, so it wouldn't have necessarily been any of those guys. maybe
No, like
maybe it'll be
Ronan
like a
was
West Coast Avengers thing. I don't know.
no. Dark. It would have to be Dark Avengers. It would have to be Dark
Yeah.
Avengers. It couldn't just be like, oh yeah, like this bunch of murderers is the West Coast Avengers. That doesn't really work.
I whatever it turns out to be, we'll definitely be talking about it.
Yeah.
Also, Liz, we've got to talk about reviewing that show because that's like right before my birthday, and I've got a very busy birthday this year because it's a big one. We have to kind of discuss that off the pod.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So a new Avengers team. Sorry. Spider-Man was on the team, which is like, pretty unusual. Iron Man. I don't think like Ronan was like an original like member of that team. But definitely Spider-Woman, definitely Captain America, definitely Iron Man, definitely I think Wolverine. Wolverine's a member of the team. Yeah, so it's like that's a really interesting team.
See, when you think about it, Wolverine as a character, I think would make a perfect kind of Dark Avenger. But
well, the Dark Avengers team, it was basically almost like dark versions of all of those characters. So the dark version of Wolverine was Daken, his son, who like was like basically a really dark Wolverine. And like that original Dark Avengers team had, the Spider-Man, variation was Venom, and like Hawkeye does. I think I can't remember if like I feel like Hawkeye's dead for at least part of New Avengers, but by the time that Dark Reign came along, the Hawkeye from that team would have been Bullseye, and like so it goes on and on like that. But yeah, that is one thought that I did have was like, oh, okay, maybe they're gonna call it Dark Avengers, and that's why there's this asterisk, but or is it because there's going to be a longer title attached to it when, it actually comes out, or I just don't know. I just don't know what to make of it.
We'll wait and see. But I wonder if it's just going to be like an in-joke about the team name.
It's weird. Yeah. It's one of those little things. It's just going to haunt me until I figure out what it actually means.
Yeah. I think like most MCU things, you spend far too much time thinking about this.
Sleepless nights, Paul. Sleepless nights. Anyway, do we have any more trailers to watch?
No, we don't have any more trailers. We do have to look ahead for Marvel if we want to take a look at that. So this is the kind of look ahead for Marvel television for the next year or so. Let's just bring that up now for you because I was really excited about because there were lots of things in this that I just didn't know were even a thing. So let's take a quick look at that.
I'm here to offer you an opportunity.
Oh, I smell what you're stepping in. It's gonna get good.
It's been some time, hasn't it? You've come up in the world.
I could say the same about you.
I wonder if your darker half would agree. Exactly what kind of a lawyer are you?
A really good one.
Miss me!
Oh!
I want to build something undeniable.
Anyone who's ever accomplished anything iconic in life has had to do some questionable things to get it done.
But for an adventure?
The battle they will sing about for ages.
You can slate whenever you're ready.
Simon Williams, reading for Wonder Man.
I was born to play this character. And we both have a lot riding on this. You better not mess this up. I know.
I am ready.
I am Marvel Jesus.
We have a long road ahead of us. Much to do.
Oh my God!
So yeah, I mean, a ton of stuff, and the real surprises on there for me were Ironheart, which I'd kind of actually almost forgotten about
It was a
because that's
long time
yeah,
since they announced it, you know.
and it's been quite a while since um Wakanda Forever, right?
I mean, all of
um,
these things were announced quite some time ago. But you know, things like you know, basically, you know, some of it's stuff that I thought was further away on the horizon than it
yeah, Wonder
actually.
Man. I mean,
Yeah, I thought that, you know, I didn't realize that Wonder Woman was filmed, and or at least, you know, partially filmed.
yeah, and just to touch on that, because that's coming out right at the end of next year, so that's December. That one kind of really interests me because Yahya Abdul Mateen is a great actor, and I really like his stuff. It's his like second or third foray into like comic book stuff. He of course was
Black Manta in Aquaman.
Yeah, and I'm going to say spoiler if you haven't seen the HBO Watchmen series. Put your fingers in your ears. He is Dr. Manhattan. He gets revealed as Dr. Manhattan in the Watchmen series. But you're kind of that's a mystery throughout the entire show. So he's kind of building up an interesting comic book sort of oeuvre of his own there. Now Wonder Man started as a character who was like I think, isn't he kind of like a competitor of Tony Stark's? And then he kind of gets.
He's a character that again, it was just like a weird casting choice.
Yeah.
Like, or not casting choice, rather, just a weird choice.
Yeah.
You know, because he's sort of this really under the radar character. You know, I haven't read much with him in it. I know that like sometimes he goes out with the Scarlet Witch.
But he kind of, I think the idea doesn't he get offered powers by a villain, and takes them, and then, you know, goes off and becomes this, you know, Wonder Man. But this kind of seems slightly meta, and yet not, because it looks like he's, you know, wants to play a character called Wonder Man, but we have, of course, Trevor Slattery, who, like,
I mean, it's hilarious that he's turning back up. He just is the gift that keeps giving.
He's terrific. I really like Ben Kingsley in that role. So I'll be interested to see what they do with that, because I think, having rewatched Iron Man 3 recently, he is an absolute highlight.
Oh yeah.
Absolute highlight anytime he appears.
Yeah, and he was a joy in Shang-Chi as well.
Yeah, completely. And this is I believe Shang-Chi's director, Daniel Dustin Cretton, doing
Wonder Man. Oh,
okay. Yeah. I believe. I could be wrong about that. He, you know, I wonder if partially, though, this is the thing that's delayed, or one of the things that's delayed Shang-Chi 2, which is apparently still in the offing, is still very much a thing. And I wouldn't mind seeing. There's a lot of aspects of the original Shang-Chi
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I thought it was really, really fun, and some of the best fighting sequences of any of the Marvel films.
Completely. And it's certainly something I'd like to see them lean into even more. But yeah, that was the real shock for me, because it was just like, I didn't even know this was coming.
I just didn't you know, I mean, I haven't had it on my radar at all. I thought it was just happening much further down the line. So when this big teaser dropped at NYCC, it's was a big surprise to me too.
The Eyes of Wakanda, I don't know if there was supposed to be a Black Panther's TV series or Wakanda TV series.
That's what this is.
Yeah, but I thought there was supposed to be a live action one that now seems dead and buried.
Oh, okay. Maybe like that's like, basically just fallen right out of my memory because I didn't know that it was particularly live action. I just knew that there was going to be a Black Panther related TV series.
I might be wrong about that.
The fact that it's animated didn't surprise me.
You lose track of the
details. Yeah, I mean, because the announcements happen, and then the actual things often come out years and years later.
And then of course you've got speaking of animation, we've got kind of What If season 3, the show that Liz always moans at me for not watching.
It is really worth watching the What If stuff. Like season 1, I think you would have benefited massively from seeing season 1 before seeing Multiverse of Madness,
right?
For example, like tons of stuff that happens in Multiverse of Madness is
I'll look at it at some point. I'm just not really into kind of. I don't watch a lot of cartoons, unfortunately. And I think that's sorry, I've just leaned off screen there because I'm just got a text from my girlfriend asking me if I'm still podcasting or if Liz and I are just
if we broke out into virtual fisticuffs
just
because you didn't like that.
Sorry. The podcast has gone on far too long. Sorry, guys. So there's like. But I will try and give some of the animated stuff a try. And my tastes are changing a lot in the last few years, I find, and
I think you would be very pleasantly surprised by it. I think,
I'm sure
a lot of
I'd
people,
enjoy it.
it's their favorite of the series.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure I would enjoy it, but deep down there is part of me that just goes, I can't be bothered. So...
Suck it up, Paul. Gotta get over the hump.
I have. And then of course, the Spider-Man show looks like a lot of fun, and I will watch because the animation style looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And although it's going to be a completely different style to the stuff we've seen in Spider-Verse, I think it's kind of going to bridge that gap because obviously we've got an extended wait now for the next part of the Spider-Verse saga, and I'm really kind of looking forward to at least giving that a try, just because that style looks so interesting. It looks like they've kind of almost resurrected the quasi kind of Super Friends style, or Spider-Man and his amazing friends. I don't know if you remember that from your kiddie days, the show that
I never saw it.
So it was Spider-Man, Iceman, and Firestar, who was a character they later brought into the comics. In fact, I think she was only kind of just recently brought into comics in the last.
No, Firestar's been in the comics for quite a long time. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. But I think she was the one that was created just for the show, and then later.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I
think so. Yeah. Okay. So that's certainly something I'm looking forward to.
And I think the big one. Let's talk about the big one.
Daredevil. I mean, the show that's probably had the rockiest road to. The thing is, you'll never now see the stuff that they shot.
No, and originally. I don't care. The stuff that they have, great. I was not looking forward to the iteration that they originally described. I was like, this is a bad idea. It just did not. I mean, and I love that they realized that and they course corrected and they listened to what people were saying, which is I don't want this Daredevil. I want the Daredevil that I really liked. I want that one.
I mean, and also in my sort of partial rewatch, which hasn't gone too far, I've only watched the first couple of episodes, but of Daredevil, it's painfully obvious that Foggy and Karen are kind of the heart of the show.
Right, and to not have
and
them,
yeah,
you know, it just seemed insane. And also, you know, just so many of the choices that they were making, like, you know, it was like, I think what they were going for was more of like the, you know, which was a good comic, don't get me wrong, but like more like the Charles Soule Daredevil run that, you know, was much more focused on him being a lawyer. Like, you weren't supposed to see him as Daredevil for like half
yeah,
the series. And it's just like, you know, I think they were just trying to maybe, you know, move away from like kind of the darker, edgier Daredevil of the Netflix shows. But that's what people loved. And that's what
yeah.
everybody was, you know, desperate to have back.
And interesting, they have got at least one of the characters from the Charles Soule run, which is is it the Muse, that character, the villain,
Yes.
the sort of beanie cap, makeup. I saw Charles Soule tweeting about that just recently. So yeah, I mean, that might be it's a run I'm not really familiar with. That was my kind of checkout point for Daredevil, so I need to kind of go back and take a look at that. And I do hope they make it available again.
I'm sure they will.
But
I mean, like,
yeah. That's going to be the big one.
It is. Like, I mean, this is like, you know, I really hope that they nail it the way they nailed. Like, you know, I think that this is one that I think people, you know, there's a lot of pressure on it to, you know, deliver what people, you know, are hoping for, which is just, you know, like the Netflix stuff never stopped, basically. Yeah. You know, and it was like the same thing with Deadpool. Everybody was like kind of on their edge of their seat to be like, are they going to get it right? Are they going to get it right? Mm-hmm. And they did. So I'm really hoping that this does too.
And it does look like we'll get 2 seasons of Daredevil, which are kind of being filmed, not back to back anymore, because they were, you know, obviously the delay in sort of re kind of jigging the show. I do feel a bit sorry for those creators as well, because I mean, I hope they kind of at least got paid off.
I mean, I'm sure they did, but you know.
It does very much seem the tenor of the last few years, which is, oh, well, we'll just scrap this. It doesn't matter. But it matters to somebody. I mean, Batgirl, all that kind of stuff. I know there was a lot of hubbub over the Wile E. Coyote movie. But, you know,
but here's the thing. It's like, you know, at least they're listening to their audience, you know, and, you know, I don't think that there was, you know, anybody like, you know, clamoring for the Batgirl movie. I mean, I hate to say it, you know, except for maybe
I don't know.
the people who made it.
I suspect we will see that movie at a juncture where it's financially viable.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, but you know, there's not like this built-in audience, just like, you know, waiting with bated breath for like, you know, the Batgirl movie that, you know, didn't look very good. Whereas, you know, Daredevil, it's like, you know, you got to get that right, or else people are going to be mad.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Cassie Kane. Actually, we're not going to talk about this. This is a DC.
Okay, and it wasn't a Cassie Kane movie either. It was a.
No,
like,
I know.
Right.
But I mean, I just mean that Batgirl seems to retain this kind of popularity and keep popping up.
People love Batgirl. I'm not, you know, but I like that particular movie. I didn't think looked very good. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that I was like, bad idea, guys.
But overall, I'm excited again. I mean, you know, I was saying to a friend the other day, I was exchanging messages with a friend, and funny enough, we were talking about All-Star Batman. It was before All-Star Batman came out.
And you do mean Absolute Batman?
Absolute Batman, I'm sorry, yes. And I was like, as always, I remain interested but not excited.
Oh my God. Come on, Paul. I know you're excited about Absolute Batman.
And then I read it.
Right.
And I was excited.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of times when I am just interested and curious. I'm not necessarily excited. I'm an old man, Liz. It doesn't, you know, it takes a lot to get you excited when you hit reviews. But I always remain, my interest is always peaked, but never quite frothing in the ways yours is. And I love that about you. But yeah, I prefer to remain a little bit more reserved until I kind of see the thing, and then I get get excited. But of course, I am interested in all of this.
Yeah.
I just hope I can keep up and read all the comics that are going to be out to kind of coincide with all this stuff. I am hoping to do a ton of Daredevil stuff for next March.
Yeah, I'm dying for that. I think it looks so good. I think it's like you know, just from the look of it, it's like and everything I know about it, which is that it's going to have the Punisher, which I love John Bernthal Punisher. It's got like the full cast. It's got Foggy and Karen. It's got Kingpin. It's got they actually were going to recast Vanessa, and they actually managed to get the original actress to come back.
She's great.
She's great.
Yeah. I really like her acting. I think incredible year ahead for Marvel, and then also DC as well, which undoubtedly you're going to talk about.
Well, why don't we do? Yeah, we can do another one of these. So we can do a DC, sort of catch up as well.
We are hoping to talk about the last few months of Star Wars as well, because sparked entirely by Liz, I have to say, quite a surprise, because you've been doing a kind of Star Wars rewatch, and that's kind of inspired me to do a Star Wars rewatch, and I've had some quite sort of interesting, not epiphanies, but I've come to a different place with the Star Wars movies now than I was in before, and I think that'll be fun for us to chat about, because I did you re-listen to our Last Jedi? No, yes,
not yet. Not yet. I am totally going to though. Like
I did re-listen to it. So Liz asked me to send her our Last Jedi podcast, which was the very first podcast we did.
Not Last Jedi. Rise of Skywalker.
Was it Rise of Skywalker? Okay, sorry, no, yeah.
Last Jedi that was we did when we were working at the shop.
Yeah, so Rise of Skywalker was the very first podcast we did for the Comic Crush. And yeah, to say that we were somewhat upset.
I mean, because if we were talking about Last Jedi, we were like real upset.
That was kind of, there was actually a customer, I forget who it was now, but they were a lovely customer who used to come in, and they said, I turned off your Last Jedi podcast quite only a few minutes in. I was like, why?
Because you didn't like it.
It's because you said right at the beginning you hate it.
I mean, it's so funny that movie continues to be so polarizing, and that's something that we could talk about, when we do our Star Wars catch up. I think there's plenty to.
We'll chat about the DC stuff, sort of, maybe this year if we can fit it in, or maybe closer to when Superman comes out. But I am hoping, Liz, that we get to do plenty of podcasts next year, because I've certainly missed our conversations, and we do have so much to talk about in the next year. What form they'll take? Will they be weekly shows? Will it be just when the show is done? We'll have to wait and see. But Liz, till then, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's been lovely chatting to you. Thank you for giving me so much of your time today. Look, nearly 2 hours, Liz. Jesus.
I mean, you gave me the excuse to talk about a bunch of Marvel stuff. So,
what are you guys excited about? This is what I really want to hear. What are you guys excited about? Drop us a comment down below, or on any of the socials. Let us know what Marvel things you're excited about. There's some more podcasts coming up. I've got an interview with the world's only doctor on Doctor Doom, which I hope is going to be appearing quite quickly after this podcast. So do keep an eye out on that, because that was an interesting, fun chat to have. And certainly in keeping with everything that's going on in Marvel Comics in the next sort of year or so. And the Marvel movies. Liz, we didn't even talk about RDJ.
No,
we're going to have to try and find a chance to talk about that at some point. But this has been fun. At the Comic Crush on the socials, at the comiccrush.bsky.social is probably the main channel where you're going to find us now, because Twitter is a cesspool. And Facebook and Instagram, we're all on there. Just give us a shout, give us a follow. Take a look at the Patreon, take a look at the shop. That all helps keep me going, doing this stuff. And we'll catch you all soon. Liz, good night.
Good night.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye bye.